Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dammie. Just in case you're seeing me for the very first time, I'm a Nigerian, an accountant living in Australia. You will see why I said the accounting part very soon, or even by the title of the video you already guessed what I'll be talking about. So this video is a two-part video. One is I'm going to be addressing what I think of accounting career in Australia, and two, just a tip of and I think we should do the tip first. Yeah, so we'll be talking about tips on how to file your tax return in Australia. I'm an accountant, not a tax agent. Don't take this as a tax advice. If you need a tax advice, please consult someone who is registered to do so. So this is just a general advice based on my personal experience. So it's tax time in Australia. I'm going to lodge my tax, but yeah, I've been lodging tax for the last 3 years, I think. Yeah, I think this is my 4th year lodging tax, so I have a bit of experience, and what I say is what I did. Might not work for you, you might need advice as well. And bear in mind, if you consult a tax agent in Australia, you can claim this money back in your tax filing. Like if you start filling the forms, we'll get there. But yeah, so it's tax time. You need to file your tax. The very beginning of tax in Australia is you're working, right? They've taken your tax, but you need to actually submit your tax identification number. I think that's what it's called, TFN. That's what it's called. You need to submit your tax identification number to your employer. Even most times, if you come in the first week, second week, you don't submit, they will most likely not pay you because they need to like remit your tax as well. So that's the very first thing you need to do. Get a tax identification number. I'll put the link of how to get that in my description box. And then the next thing you need to do is link your ATO to MyGov. So you get the tax identification number from MyGov. It is usually not straightforward linking this ATO to MyGov. A lot of people, at least my friends that came in last year, the two of them, and even me myself, I think I had to call either ATO or MyGov to help me link it, because the IDs they were asking for, I did not have it, because we have international license and passports. It's just a bit tricky. Some people can do it themselves. I think my husband did himself. Oh no, because he had Australian license. Anyway, there's just something tricky about that, so you might need to call them. They're always available on the phone and very pleasant, willing to help. So link your ATO to MyGov so that you are able to lodge your tax at tax time. So at tax time, if you have private insurance, all of these things needs to come through. Don't be in a hurry to lodge your tax on the 1st of July. Don't be in a hurry. Calm down. Make sure that all your health insurance, healthcare has remitted into the system or is updated into the system. If you're someone who they pay fortnightly, maybe all your payroll have not gone through, just be patient. Give yourself to like maybe the first 2 weeks so that all of your information and data will be properly updated, and that is what you're filing your tax on. So once you log into ATO, right, you would already see that your income for the year, tax ready to lodge. I think that's what it says. So what you need to now do is go through all the data. They will ask for your bank details. They will ask you some of these things are things you can. I do my tax myself, but bear in mind I'm an accountant, so I have a bit of knowledge, but I'm not a tax agent, right? So there are two different things. I have a bit of accounting. I know my numbers in that regard. So there are a lot of forms you need to fill. You need to fill your bank details, your address, did you have insurance. Make sure you go through all these things one by one, and bear in mind when you're doing it as well, there are links to different things. Maybe for instance they put a form of deduction, you don't know how to calculate it, or maybe work from home, which is a very common one, you don't know how to calculate it. Just click on it. It take you to ATO website and tell you like step by step what you need to do, what is required, and things like that. So make sure you use all those help links. Yeah, that's what it's called. The help links as you go along to fill out all those information. Make sure you're filling correct information. If you've done any side hustle business, or you've been earning in cash, make sure you report all of these things, because these are the small things that people do wrong that cause them future problems in the future. So make sure you report all your incomes and make sure everything is reflected properly. Even when you've earned and your employer, just ensure that everything is properly reflected there. Most times the bank, if you've earned interest on deposit, like you have money in your bank account and earned interest, it's always report itself automatically as well. But double check, should you have any significant interest income, needs to be reported so that it doesn't flag later on and then cause you some issue. Once you've done all of those things, your tax is almost ready to lodge. But the few things I wanted to flag with you as a temporary resident: one, if you're on a temporary resident, and when I say temporary resident, you're on a 482 visa, you are a student, there are lots of temporary visas, right? And with this visa, you don't have access to Medicare. So I'm talking about temporary residents who do not have access to Medicare. The way it is structured here is, with your tax, I think 2% of the amount they take as tax is for Medicare levy. If you're not getting Medicare, you didn't use any Medicare service, so during the year you have the right to get all of this money back 100%, because you didn't have access to Medicare. If you had access to Medicare, halfway through the year they will ask you, when did you become entitled to Medicare? You can prorate, like all of those things. So always, and I think that's one thing that can cause an issue as well, always ensure to populate that part that you were not entitled to Medicare, or you were entitled, or prorate as they are applicable. There are also several deductions that you can also fill into your tax. For instance, if you drive to work, depending on the type of work you do, I know people in disability, they are able to claim their kilometers back, and it is a lot of money, because remember, you guys drive long distance to work, so make sure you keep a logbook. If you do Uber Eats, you do DoorDash, is that what it's called? You do DoorDash, you do any of these deliveries businesses, or work with any of these ones, make sure you keep a logbook so that you can file and get all those deduction back. So kilometers you can claim. Work from home is a bit tricky. If you buy some work specific gears as well, you are able to claim some of this money back. But please ensure you read the ATO guide on what is deductible, what is allowed, and what is not an allowable expense. Another thing you can claim back is furniture towards the end of the year. If there are things you use to get your work done, for instance, I'm setting up a home office, I bought this table, obviously I'm going to put this in my tax, I'm going to put my monitor in my tax, I'm going to put all those things in my tax. Like even this chair, I'm going to put it in my tax this year because I set up this office in this current financial year. So then I'm going to be able to claim some of this. So these expenses will be deducted from my income before they now recalculate my tax for the year. So I think those are the few things you need to know. You can do it yourself, but you can also go to an agent. Most of these agents, they won't charge you so much, maybe $70 or $100. You will see a lot of them around. HR Block is one. I think my husband used that the first time we came here, because at the time he was doing like delivery, and it was a bit tricky managing logbook and entering all of those data into the system. So and that's it, and you can claim the tax agent's feedback. So I don't think that's so much of a big deal. You can use them if you're, at least for the first year, maybe use an agent, and then with time you get better and you get into it. But that's that about tax. I hope that helps someone. If there's any question or something you're not sure about, feel free as always to drop it in the comment section, or send me a DM on Instagram if it's very personal. I would respond as soon as I can, not promising immediate. But okay, now let's go to the other part of this video, which is talking about what do I think of the accounting profession in Australia. It is a good profession, I will not lie, but in all honesty, if I'm being very honest, as an accountant, you know, accounting is different from auditing. I am an auditor. I've worked in audit. I've worked in the same audit firm for the past 10 years, right? My experience is different to an accountant. So why do I say that? As an auditor, auditors are always in demand. Every company needs to file a financial statement at the end of the financial year. So auditors will always be in demand. Like everybody needs an auditor. All the big fours are always routine. Even now, big four, PKF, Grant Thornton, most of these audit firms are always recruiting at every point in time, because they recycle people. That's what I just think it is. They recycle people from time to time. So with audit is a very good career pathway to penetrate into the accounting space. So what do I mean? As an accountant, for instance, coming from Nigeria to Australia, getting a job here, it is hard. Bear in mind, coming directly from Nigeria, coming into Australia as an accountant and getting a job here is pretty hard. And why do I know this? My husband is an accountant, is an FCA, is a chartered accountant. And when we first came, it was a struggle to get an accounting job. He had good experience, like solid. It was a struggle because he didn't have Australia experience, because assuming my husband was an external auditor from Nigeria, he would have gotten something like, and we came during before COVID. So we were here at the peak of COVID when all these firms were looking for people desperately. If he had external audit experience, he would have gotten a job. So what I would say is, as an accountant, if you're still in Nigeria and you're thinking of relocating, I would say if you have the opportunity, try to build a career in external audits, like start from there, and then you take it from there. That's just what I think. I feel like the external audit space gives you a lot of exposure and experience, and most external auditors that I know in Nigeria now, they are jackpot, and everybody's just, you know, going from Cayman Islands to the UK to the US to Canada, and you will always get a job because you have experience in Big Four. They want you. But if you're just coming as an accountant, pure accountant, you've worked in maybe a bank, you've worked in any industry as financial accounting role, getting a job in the industry is quite hard. I am not saying it is impossible, but it is not easy to find a job, I'll tell you. But having worked here for a few years now, getting a job in accounting space, core accounting, is easy. They are even looking for you. You know what I mean? Because you now have Australian experience. So they feel like you are well grounded to take on the job. They feel like now you know, hey, you know the accounting standard here. And yeah, don't get confused, just in case you don't know, ASB, Australia Accounting Standard Board, is the same thing as AFRS. There's no difference. The standard is the same. So if you've done ACCA, ICANN, you're still good. Another thing to look at it is, most people are saying, oh, do you have to be qualified? No, you don't have to, based on my experience, at least for external audit. So what they usually would say is, if you're qualified, if you have CPA, CCA is an added advantage, but that doesn't rule you out. You know, back home, if you're not qualified, it's almost like you're not ready to pursue this career, but it's not the same thing here. Even one of my directors was making it as a joke this afternoon. I was like, oh, I heard back in these countries, if you're not qualified, second attempts, they will disengage you. That's true. I went through that horror experience as well. I was not disengaged, but yeah, I was almost at it, you know, doing my second attempt or something. But yeah, that's another story for another day. But so CPA, ACCA, CF, whatever it's called, like here they are all about experience as against qualification. But if you, and this is audit space, but if you're getting into industry, they might make it compulsory. I don't know. I don't work in industry, but I don't think anyone have ever asked me if I'm qualified in that. Like when I try to play around with my CV, I don't think so, but I don't know. But yeah, that's just it. So there's a lot of opportunities here, but it's just getting into that opportunity. Like, how do you get it? If you have audit experience, you work here with any of the Big Four, even for 1 year, it's easy for you to transition. Transitioning from audit to accounting is quite easy, but transitioning from a Nigerian accountant to an accountant in Australia is hard. It is hard. I've seen people struggle, a lot of people struggle, and they just have to change career paths. So that's what happens. But I feel like it's a perspective, like there's money. Not as much as some people, but there's money. At least if, for instance, you're in audit and you make it a partnership, some partners make as much as 1 million per annum. But I'm just joking. When will you make partnership? It's not that easy, but that's just the background. And then accounting as well. Even as a 2 years or 3 years experienced senior in an audit, right? 2 years or 3 years experience, you get things above 100. You get above 100 to get in the industry. So I feel like that's fair enough for salary wise, but that's been my experience here. I don't know if there's anything, but it's a good career path. Just that, yeah, it's hard getting accounting roles coming directly from Africa, Nigeria, South Africa, or wherever. But that's it. I hope I've addressed those two topics properly. And if you have any further questions, please drop it in the comment section. As always, I will get to it when I get the time. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.